but it rips it harder. I'm the best ever. I'm the most brutal and vicious and most ruthless champion there's ever been. There's no one can stop me. I'm the best ever.
All right, welcome back to the Sit Down. My guest this week, Evan Chmieleski. Evan's coming off a big win. This was going to be Evan's retirement fight, but Evan is talking about possibly taking another fight. Is that right, Evan?
Yeah, that's correct. I actually prefer to not use the word retirement. It was me just thinking about taking some time to focus on some other things. But I've been getting a lot of pushback on the whole retiring thing since the last fight. So I'm a competitive guy. I like to keep it going, so just keeping my options open.
And that guy you fought, what was his name?
His name was Frank Buenafuente from Mike Macenzio MMA.
Yeah, he was extremely tough. I was saying to Evan that for a retirement fight or your last fight, maybe you not go balls to the wall and take somebody that's super tough. That dude, he gave you a real good fight, but you definitely beat him. You handled him on the ground and you did what you always do. You ground and pound. Was that the game plan?
The game plan for this one was actually not to have such a game plan. Just come in and just kind of let it go. I knew he was a really strong wrestler, but that tends to be my strength as well. So we figured we could match strength to strength, and if need be, we were working really hard on my striking. Since my last fight, where my striking was obviously a huge deficit, we were working really hard on my striking, and I felt comfortable no matter where it was going to be.
Okay, so this was your first fight since the fight where you actually got a fractured skull. That's not the norm. Normally MMA fighters don't fracture skulls. They fracture other bones, but a fractured skull is very serious. Let's go into that. That was almost, 6 months ago?
Yeah, it was April 12th. Cage Fury Fighting Championships. I think it was the 25th one. And it happened in the first round. It was just a flash knee that I never really even saw. We didn't know the extent of it until later in the hospital when I was forced to go. I thought I was fine because I wasn't even knocked out. So once we got there, everyone took it a lot more seriously than I did. I didn't really realize the extent of it until waking up the next day, still in the hospital with all the X-rays and things going on.
So what happens when you sustain an injury that serious? Do you feel a crunch? Do you see a flash?
It was funny. I just remember we were fighting, and I went to push away. He tried to Muay Thai plumb me, and the next thing I knew, I was on my back, just thinking like, wow, that something hit me really, really hard. I don't know what it was, but I better get off my back right now. And then so I went up for a single, and I think he punched me one more time, and the ref just came in and stopped it, and I didn't really know what was going on until Jason Sargis told me to sit down and shut up because I had a hole in my head, and the doctors needed to look at me. So I just listened to Jason. He knows what he's talking about.
Jason is the man. So Jason prepares your cardio for every fight. You never seem to get tired. Is the injury that you sustained from this guy, did it have you, you're a person first, you're a fighter second, did it have you a little nervous? Were you worried about getting back into a cage and this ever happening again?
The only time that I actually was nervous at all was when I started feeling sick on the car ride over there. Once I was awake and talking the next morning, I knew I was fine. I was immediately thinking about how long is it going to be until I can get back into it. It's not something that I do for fame or money or anything like that. It's just something that I do because it's what makes me feel level. It keeps me feeling happy and fulfilled, and so I just love to compete.
So even when you don't see Evan Chmieleski in a cage, you can still see his aura on other Brazen fighters. Even when Evan's not taking a fight, Evan's on the mats in Brazen, and he's preparing Anthony Terrell, Tom Backman, Sharif now. He's preparing all these guys for their fights coming up. And this is why their ground game is so sharp. You got guys like Evan who are hardcore wrestlers that are in there working with these guys day in and day out. Your training partners, who are some of the guys that impressed you the most at Brazen?
Everyone there definitely has their own merits. Anthony Terrell is probably the most athletic person I've ever been around. He is so athletic that it's very frustrating sometimes, and I've actually came up with ways just to approach him that I don't fight anyone else the way that I fight him. And I'm lucky enough to have been training with him for 14 or 15 months now. These guys get in the cage with him, they don't have nearly enough time to figure him out. So that's where his success is really coming into play, because longer rounds, trying to control a guy that's that strong and that fast, it's 5 minutes with him is a long time. So I think that's why as a pro you're seeing him become much more successful. He's got a longer time to work. You can't just get one flash takedown and win a round on him. Now you have to hold him down and stop him from kicking you in the head and kneeing you in the mouth and uppercutting you and doing all this. I mean, he just comes out of nowhere with all this stuff. So he's really exciting to watch, and I can't wait to see him move to 4-0 next week at XFE.
Yeah, he's got a big fight coming up on XFE. Anthony's a genetic freak. To me, he's like he's one of those dudes like you see on like Ninja Warrior, doing all the obstacle courses. You guys got some other monsters out there. Sharif. Sharif's always had excellent stand-up. He's gotten caught by a couple wrestlers. I'm thinking working under Jason, his conditioning's going to go through the roof. You can't help but get better wrestling when he works with guys like you. Even if this is your last fight, you're still going to be training at Brazen, right?
Oh yeah, I'm not going anywhere. I'm with Brazen for life. Jason has resurrected my career. He's fixed some holes that have been in my game forever. I kind of was just like a nomad, wandering around, just fighting, and didn't really have anyone telling me, you know, what I had that was good and what I had that needed to be worked on and needed to be nourished. Having a guy that's as intelligent as him and can really break it down like that, not to mention the fact that he cares personally about all his fighters and wants to see them succeed, not for the $120 he's going to get out of my win purse, but he wants to see me succeed because he cares about Evan Chmieleski and he cares about Anthony Terrell. That's what Brazen has that all these other places don't have. And if you came in there and tried to start a fight with one of us, you'd be fighting all of us because it's really like a family atmosphere, and that's going to be the success of this program moving forward, I believe.
I like that. As soon as I started really going down Brazen and having my conversations with Jason, you notice right away it's like a us against the world type of thing, and everybody supports everybody. And if you're outside of Brazen, what do they say? Respect all but fear none. So it's kind of like a cliquish thing at Brazen. Once you start training there, you become one of the family. A bunch of really cool people as well, but very, very defensive. Even me going in there with a camera, people are watching me like, you know what I mean, like kind of give me the eye, like you better not put nothing negative up. But it's just like it's just one big family. So that's pretty cool. And I want to shout out Jess too.
Hi, Jess.
Jess Richmond. So where were you at before you even went to Brazen?
I originally started up at a place in Warminster called Extreme Mixed Martial Arts. I went in there when I was 24 years old. Had no experience of any kind. I had no background other than like fighting on the playground and things like that. Took a fight. My first day was in June. Took a fight in July of 2008. It was an amateur fight. I ended up against some guy who was a brown belt from whatever, and he kicked my ass. But
your first fight was against a brown belt?
Yeah.
Good matchmaking. Who did that?
That was Asylum Fight.
What the fuck is wrong with people?
I believe I was supposed to fight someone who actually ended up being a pro. Then they told me they didn't have a fight. Then all of a sudden this guy came out of nowhere and he's like, "Oh, I'm on weight. You want to fight?" And I'm like, "Whatever." So we didn't find out who he was until after the fight. It's on YouTube. I don't like to watch it because it's really ugly because I didn't know anything. It was basically me literally running after him, throwing haymakers at him, and him just working his jab and moving around and punching me a lot. But it taught me a lot about myself. And from there, I just kept fighting, and I fought for my first amateur title like 8 months after the first day I walked in the gym. So fighting's never been the issue. It's calming myself down sometimes that becomes the issue, and that's what Jason is able to do. He's the first person that ever actually made me believe in myself. Not me. That took me away from needing to hear other people tell me I was tough to know that I'm tough. So I give all the credit for anything that happens for the rest of my career to Jason, no matter where it goes, because they pulled me in when I was 3-4, coming off a loss to Brian Lasham. That was my favorite fight ever, even though they stopped it because my eye was swollen. It was my favorite fight ever. He's a tough dude and he's a great guy. And Jason saw that fight and he welcomed me in, and we've been working ever since on just fixing things up. And I'm 2-1 since then. So it's an uphill climb, but we're getting there.
We're going to take our first break with Evan Chmieleski. We'll be right back after these messages.
XFE 27 invades Harris in Chester on October 19th with a stacked card of mixed martial arts action. Come see the pro debut of knockout artist Chris Dawkins, John DeBruge, Anthony Terrell, Basil Hafez, and more. Tickets are priced to go, starting at just $45. For more information, log on to www.xfemma.com.
Broadcasting live from the penthouse atop Center City's largest skyscraper. Or, better yet, live from a converted tool shed in Levittown, Pennsylvania. It's Sit-Down Radio with your host, Mike Bicky.
All right, we're back. Evan Chmieleski. Let's get into fighter relationships. Sometimes fighters don't want to fight other fighters because they're close, even though they don't train at the same school. You ever had a situation like that happen where someone didn't want to fight you because friendships or whatever when you wanted to take a fight?
Yeah, absolutely. It actually just happened for XCC. One of my opponents, potential opponents, did not want to take the fight because he knows that I'm friends with Pat Sabatini, who he also trains with, and they didn't want a conflict of interest or anything like that. So that fight was nixed before it even started. It actually almost happened with Julio Rosario. I was cross-training down at Philadelphia Fight Sport. This was in 2011, and Julio also cross-trained there. So I removed myself from Fight Sport so that there would not be any not wanting to fight because we were friends. And I think that's where Jason is misunderstood a lot of times, and people like to give him this reputation of being this dick that just hates everyone. That's not true. Jason sees this sport as what it is. We're fighting each other. To say that you don't want to fight someone because you're friends makes no sense. That's like, I'm a manager for Red Robin. That's like me saying that I would never want one of my friends that worked at Fridays to be my friend because they work at a different restaurant. It just doesn't make sense to me. We fight, and when we're done fighting, then it's over. But I think guys would like to protect their records, and if you're training with a guy in a room and he knows what you like to do, it makes you a lot less confident to actually take that fight because you don't think maybe you're going to surprise him. I've never really worried about that. A fight's a fight. It can go any way at any day. So I think that's where a lot of the misunderstanding lies with Jason and Brazen. It's just he's not there to pull punches. He's there to fight.
So you'll fight anybody outside of your school?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I don't have a problem taking a fight with anyone. That's Jason's job now because, I've taken fights on 6 days' notice against guys like Aljamain Sterling. Probably not the best career move, but that's who I am. But now that I have a guy like Jason, he's making sure that I don't make any rash decisions like that, and it's very appreciated.
Well, you can't teach heart. I think that's one of the main things that you need to be an MMA fighter. You can work on your jiu-jitsu game, work yourself up to a black belt. You can become a great Muay Thai fighter. But I think a fighter has to start generally with some heart. And it takes a lot of heart to get in that cage, man. Sometimes after events, I might get in the cage with my kids and let them get a picture or something. But there's still an aura when you get into that cage. Like I'm doing it after an event and half the crowd left already. You're doing it when there's, sometimes 2,000 people there, and you're not just fighting some chump that says he's better than you. You're fighting another dude that trains just like you, maybe not as hard as you, but just like you. So when you get into that cage and the bell's about to ring, especially in your last fight for Ryan Kerwin, you got your family there. They were sitting right in front of me. They're cheering you on. That's a lot of pressure on you. Are you concentrated on your opponent, or are you aware that everybody's watching you and everybody wants you to win?
I've made that mistake in the past where I've thought about my previous fight right while I'm in the cage getting ready to start the fight, or I've thought about who am I going to fight next, or what are these people going to think of my performance. And at the end of the day, all that does is take your focus off of what you need to be doing. And I've learned that the hard way. I've had 10 pro fights. I'm 5-5. I go up, I go down. But never stopping, moving forward is getting me to the point where I'm beginning to understand that none of that outside stuff matters. The only thing that matters is what goes on inside the cage. Because at the end of the day, when all that's over, no matter what happened, your friends will still be your friends. And everyone who isn't, they probably never were to begin with. So once you take that off, all the pressure goes away, and you just get to have fun and do what you were born to do, and do what you love to do, and you do with it every day of your life. So,
what's the worst thing you've ever heard somebody say when you were in the cage? I know you guys get heckled, especially by sometimes people bring their crowd out and they're drinking a little bit and they say some shit. Has anyone ever said anything ignorant about you, your mother, anything like that?
No, not me, but my brother is one of those guys when I fight. When I was fighting Lasham, it actually got to the point, he was like 2 or 3 rows behind my corner, and it actually got to the point that in between the round, when I was sitting on my stool, he was being so loud and so obnoxious that I actually got up and turned around and told him to be quiet because it was annoying me, and I wasn't even fighting me. So I know that it's definitely out there. I've heard things like, he's just going to take you down, he's scared to stand, anyone that knows me knows I'm not scared to do anything. But, they're supporting their friend, and my friends do the same thing. So, it is what it is. I imagine it's probably hard to watch someone that you care about fighting another person that's trying to hurt them and just sit there and relax.
Sure.
So the impartiality of it is a lot easier said than done, I believe.
Now let's go into that. Some people, your strategy when you're fighting, you like to take guys down. You like to work your advantage. You're a great wrestler. How do you feel about people that say you're just a wrestler, or Evan Chmieleski is just a wrestler? He's not a complete mixed martial artist, and he's just going to do one thing.
It comes down to this. Being a complete mixed martial artist takes a lot of time.
Right.
There are a lot of angles to work, and there are a lot of things to go with. My strength is wrestling. It's what I gravitated to because as an amateur, I started fighting right away. I used to just come out and swing haymakers at people, and people just said, well, he doesn't know how to stop the takedown, so let me take him down. So for a year, all I did was wrestle. I lost 3 fights in a row because I had no wrestling, and all I did was wrestle, and I loved it, and I appreciate the advantage that it creates because it was done to me. Mm-hmm. So that became my focus. And it got to a point, though, where it was probably becoming a little bit predictable. Evan's going to take you down. So when you fight a guy like Aliev that I fought at the last Cage Fury in a 32-foot cage, he's going to stay away and wait for you to become predictable, and he's going to blast a knee, and he's going to hit you in the skull. And, sitting in the hospital bed, it's like, okay, well, now it's time to work on some things because I can't have this happen again. Right. So been focusing a lot on my boxing and my stand-up, so I'm going to become complete, but I think if you think you're complete, you need to retire. If you think you're complete, you need to stop because you'll never be complete, and that just means the fire's dead.
To me, a true mixed martial artist is somebody that finds a technique that can defeat your opponent's technique to win a fight. Now, if your wrestling is smashing your opponent and he's not finding a response for it, he can't get out of it, he can't stop your takedowns, why should you move on to plan B?
Right, I agree. Everybody talks about George St. Pierre. He's obviously the most well-known example of this. Everyone talks about, all he's going to do is take you down. Well, it's your job as his opponent to stop that. That's like playing football and saying all Peyton Manning's going to do is throw 5 touchdowns. He sucks. Well, how can you say that? Stop him from throwing all those touchdown passes.
Right.
It's your job to stop that. My game plan doesn't change. I feel it out, and I see what I think my strength is. And 90% of the time, I feel much more comfortable taking it to a grappling affair than I do otherwise. Even against Frank Buenafuente, who was a nationally ranked junior college wrestler, and he was a multiple-time New Jersey State place winner, I still felt that my advantage was on the ground. And
it was. He couldn't stop your wrestling.
Yeah.
But at the end of the night, that crowd leaves the building, and if you try to stand up to give the crowd a better show, which some fighters have done, you take home that loss. At the end of the night, though, when the crowd leaves and you do your thing, who cares if they don't like to watch wrestling? You get that win. It goes onto your record. You get better fights. You get more money because your record goes higher.
The job is to win. The job is to win. Whatever you need to do to win, that's what you need to do. People love people that throw down and bang and whatever these other terminologies that people use are. Everybody loves that, but nobody remembers that. People remember the people that win.
Right.
And forget about what everybody else remembers or likes. I like winning. I like winning. I don't like working my ass off, working 60 to 70 hours a week at my restaurant job and going in to train when I'm exhausted and pushing through all these things, and to go in 3 minutes and get your skull cracked in front of 4,000 people. I'm not into that. Yeah. I would like winning is definitely where it's at.
Speaking of that, you're a cook. Where at?
No, I'm actually the kitchen manager, Red Robin.
Red Robin.
Chamonix in Trevor's, Pennsylvania.
Did you ever get any asshole customers over there? Get in your face?
No one ever get in my face. I've had to kick 3 people out since I've been there.
Physically or just?
No, we're not allowed to make anything physical. We're supposed to call the police. It is a franchise owned by a corporation.
Right.
So it's a little bit less mom and pop-ish. We don't have bouncers or anything like that.
Who's the biggest dick customer you've ever had? You know where they're working?
I don't know his name. I know it was a guy that used to come in with his family. And they would always complain because one of our other managers would always, whenever they would complain, they would give them free things and this and that, and do the corporate manager table touch where it's, oh, I'm really sorry, and customer's always right, and this and that. And they, he came in with his dad and his wife and his, I guess his mother. They started talking to me like I was stupid. They started calling me boy and this, that, and the other thing. I kind of, I didn't buy them anything. I actually went in the back and I threw the keg around the back dock for about 15 minutes until I got it all out of my system. But people in the hospitality industry think that the people working there are just doormats, and it's not that way. If something's messed up, obviously something's messed up and should get fixed. But you don't have a right to talk to any other person anytime like you're a better part of the species than they are. We're all human. We're all in this crap together. So, I mean, to get so worked up over something as crazy as there being lettuce on your chicken sandwich, like we'll go take the lettuce off your chicken sandwich. It's not that big of a deal. So
how do you curb that in everyday society? I mean, you're an MMA fighter. You could beat the piss out of 80% of the world. How do you curb that in terms of road rage, someone stepping in front of you, your sister's boyfriend, if you have a sister, fucking around? How do you curb it and not put people in the hospital?
I think it's kind of a paradox to me. When I was little and I was growing up, I was very small in elementary school, middle school, and things like that. I mean, obviously I'm not very big now, but I always felt like I had something to prove, so I would go out and get in fights with bigger guys, and I would go out and I would pick on kids with less friends, and I would do asinine juvenile crap like that all the time. The older that I get and the more successful that I am and the more that I actually know that I know how to handle myself, the less I feel like I have to prove. And being strong is not just being physically strong and able to kick someone's ass. Being strong is being able to help someone who maybe feels like they don't have a friend, that somebody gives a shit about them. And that can be a lot more important than you might think it is, just to be there for somebody when they need you. I don't think a lot of people realize you could actually save someone's life just by giving them a friend. You don't know how bad it is in someone's head and how bad maybe they need someone to talk to. And if you're just busy judging them because their shoes don't match or their pants are too tight, well, you could really be doing something fucked up.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to just remember that we all go through our struggles and our hard times and things that are fucked up when we feel like we're alone. But if you can be strong enough to help someone up when they're weak and make them strong, well, then they'll remember that when they're strong, and maybe they can help someone else who feels weak, and maybe we can all just build each other up instead of smashing each other down all the time.
Makes sense. Words of wisdom. Evan Chmieleski. We're going to take one more break. We'll be right back, and we're going to go into the fractured skull. The questions people want to hear. Be right back.
XFE 27 invades Harris and Chester on October 19th with a stacked card of mixed martial arts action. Come see the pro debut of knockout artist Chris Dawkins, John DeBruge, Anthony Terrell, Basil Hafez, and more. Tickets are priced to go, starting at just $45. For more information, log on to www.xfemma.com. Fighting returns to the Sands Casino in Bethlehem, PA for XFE 28. Don't miss your chance to see UFC veteran Carmelo Marrero battle rising star Shelton the Gravedigger Graves for the XFE heavyweight title. Plus Mike Liberto, Claudio Ledesma, Brett Martinez, Brian Jackson, the debut of Chris Pintado, Adam Matea, and more. This card is stacked and tickets start at just $47. For more info, go to www.xfemma.com.
I'm back with Evan Chmieleski. Right now, the big debate in MMA is who has better abs, me or Terrell? If you had to pick one.
Well, Terrell's getting ready for a fight right now, so I guess he has an unfair advantage. He's dieting. I'm sure that you could give him a run for his money.
Absolutely. Terrell don't want none of me or my abs. All right, let's get into the fractured skull now. It baffles me because it's such a horrific injury. A fractured skull is some battlefield Roman centurion shit. Like you get hit with, like, I got one of them hanging ball with the chain things up on my wall. Actually, I don't. Who stole my barbarian? Oh, there it is.
Oh, there it is.
All right. Sargus was in here. I was about to call Sargus. He would steal that. So it's a serious injury. It's a serious, like, battlefield type injury. So you get hit, and you shared with me earlier that they actually had to cut your head. I see you have a couple scars. They peeled your forehead back to fix the fracture. Is that right? Yeah.
It's actually one scar goes from my ear all the way across the top of my head to my other ear. They literally just peeled my scalp off of my skull so they could get to my forehead. They peeled it all the way down to my nose. And then they went in. I guess there were 4 fractures in there. My frontal sinus was actually collapsed. There were 8 bone fragments, I guess, kind of just like floating around in my sinus cavity. So Dr. Christopher Hovey went in and did his little magic. He pulled all the 8 fragments out, and they actually sutured them and screwed them all back together. And I look a lot less like a mutant than I would have if I never had the surgery.
So when the fight was actually stopped, did the ring doctor know exactly what was going on? Did he tell you have a fractured skull?
It was actually pretty. It was actually pretty chaotic. Sargus might be mad at me for telling this story, but I'm going to tell it anyway. I'm sure I'll pay for it during my circuit tonight. After the fight was stopped, obviously I was upset because I still wanted to fight. I couldn't see my forehead. I didn't know what was going on. I just didn't know why would he stop the fight. So they take me back to the corner, and there's all these people in my face, and they're all looking at me, and Jason's telling me to sit down and shut up. And I said, what is it, swollen or something? What's the problem? And he said, Evan, touch your fucking head. Just touch your head right now. And so I touched my forehead, and I could feel there was a dent on it. And as time's going on, the panic is starting to set in more to Jason than me, because I don't know. I guess I just don't know how to panic. And he's screaming, get me a doctor! I need a doctor over here! Well, there were 3 doctors actually standing all around my stool. 2 of them were on either side of him. And he was actually screaming at the one doctor to get him a doctor. It was pretty funny. After they did all that, he took me to the hospital, and he was so frantic that he actually left the car running in the parking lot of the hospital. Which is comical, but it also shows how much he actually really cares about the fact that I was injured. I guess somebody had to be worried about my safety, because it wasn't me. I was mad I didn't get to go to the bar. So
how long, what was the healing process?
Let's see. I didn't get the surgery for 11 days after it happened. I actually didn't miss a day of work.
So what are you doing for 11 days? You're hanging out with pain meds or something?
I refused all the pain medication. I took ibuprofen. No, I wasn't allowed to take ibuprofen. I took Tylenol, I guess, something like that. I basically just kept telling myself to suck it up. It was just a dull pain. I mean, I'm not one to really describe what bad pain is, I guess. I don't know. I fought with a broken foot. I have calcium deposits in my arm. That doesn't really affect me, I guess. I don't know. But it was annoying. I woke up with a headache every day. Went to work, and I felt like shit more mentally because I was embarrassed about what happened. Because I knew I'm better than that. I know I was better than the show I put on. Then they did the surgery. It was a 7-hour surgery. I had 32 screws and 8 titanium plates that was used to put all 8 bone fragments back together. I also had my orbital repaired and my nose fixed. I guess the shock from it blew outward.
Wow.
That's the way the skull is developed, so it doesn't go through, it goes out. And it blew out my eye.
It blew out your eye?
Well, it blew out my orbital because it hit me here and
so it broke your
this way.
skull and your orbital?
I had a fractured frontal sinus, fractured orbital, fractured nose, and I think the frontal sinus is the correct term for the skull fracture.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was out of surgery 7 hours later, woke up the next morning, went home, and then I was at work the next day. Giving all the line cooks no excuse to ever call out again.
So fast forward a couple months later, who suggests you take another fight, you or Jason?
Actually, it was probably less than 30 minutes after the injury happened. And it was after I got done screaming at the nurses to take the neck brace off me because my neck was fine. And Jason looked at me and he said, I know you don't want to hear this right now, but we got to fix your head movement if you want to do this shit again. And I said, I'll fix it as soon as I'm out of here. I was 6 days after the surgery. I was doing circuits with whatever weight I was technically allowed to lift, but I wasn't able to spar for 12 weeks or roll for 8 weeks. So I just did a lot of bag work, a lot of mitt work, and just trying to work on keeping my hands high and not leaning into my punches like I had a tendency to do because I was so prone for the takedown that I actually was kind of settling myself out a little bit.
Right. So
in a way, it was a good thing because it forced me to sit back and actually work on the technical aspects of what's going on because, you know, just like you said, you can't teach heart. Well, you can teach technique, but sometimes you have so much heart that you don't bother learning the technique.
Right.
So I feel that now combining the two, plus having a team like all these guys at Brazen, all these killers, you know, Brazen's pro team is going to be even more ridiculous in 2 years. You got Joe Seinel turning pro. He's a 6-1 AMI with 6 finishes. He just knocks everybody out, and like he knocks them out bad. You got Sharif who's going to be turning pro soon, and you just got more and more guys coming in the pipeline. So it's only going to go up from here because we all have different skill sets, and we're just making each other better.
Do you want that fight back?
Absolutely.
The rematch?
Absolutely.
What was his name again?
His name is Amran Aliyev. I want to fight everybody who's ever beat me.
Right.
Obviously, he's probably the one that would top the list. I would love to fight Arthur Rofi again. He's a weight class up. But I think having the conditioning that I have now, I would be able to make that a much better second round than I had in the first go. But like I said, whoever Jason wants me to fight, that's who I'm fighting. I trust the guy with my career. I would trust him if I had kids. I'd let him watch my puppies. That's how much I trust him. So,
let me start the call-out clock. Is there anyone right now that you want at this very moment to be your next fight, should you decide to return?
My regional manager. His name's Jim Amato. I would like to fight him. MMA-wise, no. Nobody really that's on my radar, so to speak. I'm just looking to get better and get another win. And, you know, these little internet beefs happen on our own, so... You know, anybody who feels like they would like to fight me, I will be happy to oblige them.
All right. Evan Chmieleski, fractured skull, and he's already back, and he's already got another win under his belt. Something tells me this isn't going to be his last fight. Hopefully not. But, Evan, anyone you'd like to thank, shout out, anything like that?
Obviously, Brazen, the whole Brazen family, Jess Richmond, Jason Sardis, Andy Terrell, even the guys behind the scenes like Mike Kemmerer. You got Johnson Jujut. Somehow we skipped talking.
How the hell we missed Johnson? Johnson's a beast.
He is, yeah, he's probably the strongest individual I've ever went with. He's frustratingly strong. His hands are very, very fast. He's one to watch out for as well. So Johnson, sorry that it took all the way to the closing thing to get you in there, but we didn't forget about you. Everyone at Brazen, obviously my mother and father, they brought me up to be who I am. My dad has been the best, most loyal friend I've ever had. And my mom is actually the one who taught me about not ever feeling sorry for yourself and just being strong and pushing through. Not because she told me that, but because we were poor growing up, and she never complained and worked 3 jobs and never had an excuse ever. dealing with me and my brother, or anyone that knows us, that was quite a task.
All right. Today's lesson, don't fuck around. And where do you work again?
Red Robin.
Red Robin. Because someone might come out in a singlet and some wrestling boots and whoop your ass. Thank you for coming on the show, Evan Chmieleski.
Appreciate you having me.
Hope to see you in the future.
You will.